it's Moonlight Mason. Welcome back. If you are new, what we're doing here is reading TRISHA Paytas' book, and we are on chapter 7, the reality TV star. So if you're new to my channel, I have a makeup challenge contest that I do, and we are about to start another one in a few weeks. So you may want to look out for that and join the challenge if you love eyeshadow palettes like me. But today we are going to focus on TRISHA Paytas. I'm going to deliver chapter 7 to you right now, and we are going to be uploading the other chapters pretty regularly. There was a little break between the last chapter that I read and this one. I apologize for that, but let's get into this video. Now, if you're new to my channel, do leave leave a comment down below, introduce who you are so I can at least say hello. If you've been here before, you know how much I absolutely love and adore you. So with that, let's get into Reality TV Star by TRISHA Paytas. I was still about a month shy of turning 19 when I entered the superhero house. I had diagnosed myself as mildly insane, yet somehow I passed the psych test. I lasted 3 episodes, which was more than I was betting on. It was a fun experience, and even though the show wasn't for me, I did realize I had a knack for being a character. So I started bringing Trish, the reality TV star, with me in the real world to job interviews and relationships, etc. During my time on the show, I realized adults are no different from kids in high school. They like to mock what they fear, and they fear the unusual. On the show, there was a contestant who condemned me and thought it was his right to judge me. He called me dumb and fake until it took me a little aback. So I had never had this experience with adults since moving to LA. I felt like I was in a twilight zone and back in high school with such childish and hurtful actions. His digs at me were captured on camera, which made me cry, and it eventually led to his demise on the show, even though before mine. In some way, I was numb to it. I cried because I was being humiliated on national TV, but it didn't sting. I guess I was so used to the name calling from 10 years of it as a child and a teenager. If it didn't sting, why she cry? Right? If it doesn't push a button, there's no reaction. You don't cry. I was only in the house for about 10 days total, but when I got out, I had a renewed sense of motivation to keep going and keep striving towards my goals in Hollywood. I always gave myself the hardest kick in the butt after failure or after someone tells me I can't do something. Being on Superhero gave me a renewed self-confidence that I was going to be back on television, that perhaps this may be my break. Upon leaving the house, I went back to stripping, but I also got a job at a t-shirt shop at the Hollywood and Highland Mall. I know where that's at. It was fun because I got to design t-shirts for tourists, and I also got to meet celebrities and watch shows being filmed at the Kodak Theater. I felt like I was part of Hollywood, the business, even if I was just in Hollywood, the ghetto city of Los Angeles. I wouldn't say it's the ghetto city of Los Angeles, but it can be a bit dicey in Hollywood at night. But the club I went to was a new one, a famous one mentioned in Motley Crue songs, Off the Sunset Strip. I like this one the best because, once again, I got to meet celebrities and I felt like those were my connections. I mean, you always hear about wannabe actresses sleeping with directors and actors and thus catapulting their careers, right? Wrong. I would sleep with any guy I'd recognize from any show. It made me feel special, and I was getting paid. Did that throw you? It threw me too. After I had sex with these guys, they would tip me a couple of $100s. When they asked me to come to their houses for sex, I made thousands. A couple $1,000s may not seem like a lot for sex, and why would these Hollywood hotshots have to pay for sex? They don't. They pay you to leave. None of these actors even took me out on a date. My Rolodex of celebrities would put Heidi Fleiss to shame. Heidi Fleiss was a Hollywood madam, if many of you guys don't know who she is, a very famous Hollywood madam. However, I didn't consider what I was doing illegal. I was willing to have sex with them for free. They were just being overly generous with gas money. Either way, I wasn't complaining. I guess I was used to guys not wanting to be around me. If my own father didn't want to live with us while I grew up, why should these random men bother spending any time with me? Again, I felt special that I was sleeping with extraordinary people when in fact, all it got me was a string of heartaches, depression, and diseases. I would say 90% of the actors you watch on television or see in the movies have a sexually transmitted disease. They either don't know, don't tell you, or don't care. Okay, I don't agree with that. I really don't agree that 90% of actors are people just like you and me, and you're going to find, all kinds of people, all kinds of characters in actors. I think everyone assumes everyone in LA has something, so no one bothers mentioning it. I actually never got tested for years for fear of having something. Well, that's really smart. You don't get tested because you fear you have something, which is so dumb, but that's LA girls. It's not, you guys, okay? I was an LA girl for many years. It's not LA girls, especially if they're out there doing sex work. It is regulated to some point, and you do need to go and get tested frequently. So, this was back, 10, 15 years ago, so maybe it was like this then. I don't think so, though. I also continued seeing Brian. He was steady, and he gave me the attention these celebrities weren't giving me. He'd take me out to eat, but after a dozen dates and me not putting out, he started backing off. I think he felt I wasn't attracted to him. We emailed every day, but the dates became more and more sparse. Looking back at this time in my life, he really was the best guy for me. I was just too blinded by Mr. Director and Mr. Movie of the Week guy to actually consider. Oh my God, you guys, excuse me. The windows are open because it's really raining and it's just the air is coming in. But I was too blinded by Mr. Director and Movie of the Week guy to actually consider a somewhat normal guy like Brian. Brian would always end our email conversations with, you are F-U-C-T. I would reply, no, you're F-U-C-T. And he would reply, we both are. I never really understood what that meant. I just thought it was something playful. As I started making money and worrying less about how I was going to pay the bills, I noticed my mental positivity was also changing. Maybe it was because I was shopping more. I spent all the money I made from the guys at the club on dresses and toys and cameras and shoes. To this day, I'm such a clothes hoarder. I keep all my clothes because I have such an emotional attachment to them. I have tags on over 75% of my closet. That is true. That is true. I love my clothes and they've been with me through it all. I blew through money so quickly, leaving none in savings, that by the time the end of the month rolled around, I'd be on the phone with my mom and her friend in Illinois, asking them to send me money, and they would. I definitely wasn't speaking with my dad at all during this time. As far as I was concerned, my dad was the reason I can't say it right. My dad was the reason I was stripping, and my dad was the reason I couldn't hold a relationship together. Okay, there's already a contradiction in here because she had just said that in the previous chapter, if you remember, I can find it right now because it was at the beginning of the last chapter, that she had not BR'd or essayed. I believe, let's see, maybe it was the beginning of the previous chapter, college dropout. Okay, in chapter 5 at the beginning, she says, so now you're reading all about my broken home and thinking, Trish, you were never molested or beaten, so consider yourself lucky. You may be right. My parents loved me and wanted the best for me. I believe deep down, but my own psyche really was my worst enemy. So there she claims that she had not been molested or beaten. So I guess being R is different. I definitely wasn't speaking with my dad at all during this time. As far as I was concerned, my dad was the reason I was R. My dad was the reason I was stripping, and my dad was the reason I couldn't hold a relationship together. Of course, as I write this, I understand he wasn't the reason I made those choices. But you have to wonder, did I make these choices because I was born with something a little off in my mind, or because of the way I was raised? That's the age-old question. Nature versus nurture. I suppose it doesn't really matter now, but I do think about it, as I don't want to make these same mistakes with parenting when I have children, if you can call them mistakes. I wasn't perfect, yet I expected my parents to be. Makes total sense. As my mind became a little more positive about being able to survive in LA, I started booking more TV roles. I had small parts on reality shows here and there, and I started doing the talk show circuits. Talk shows were the ones that were primarily casting on Craigslist. I had no idea how to go about getting an agent or manager. I still don't. God, all you got to do is do some research, TRISHA. Oh, brother. Because that's ridiculous. I got to LA in 2006 and I got a casting agent right away, and I didn't know. And to this day, I've worked over 100 TV shows and I've never had an agent or manager. I booked all those myself. If this book is sounding a little bitter, maybe it is, because I am. I've been here on my own a lot, whether that was by choice or by force. Either way, that's the case of my life. I've always made my own opportunities and my own way in this world. No one gave me handouts. I may have gotten breaks, but that was only because I was putting myself in those situations. Even writing this book, I have no publisher. I have no one who showed interest in it, but it's something I wanted to do. I'm doing it. If one person buys this, I will be happy because someone cares about me and my story. If no one buys it, it's been the best therapy money could buy. Superhero aired the summer after filming. I had spent my 19th birthday alone in my apartment, blogging on MySpace, taking sexy photos, and making YouTube videos. If you go onto my YouTube channel and go to my video from May 8th, 2007, you'll see 19-year-old me dressed as Mr. Blonde from Reservoir Dogs dancing to Stuck in the Middle with You. That was my 19th birthday. If you do happen to find the video, you'll also notice my dining room with no table or chairs, just a huge pile of clothes on the floor behind me. Incredible how this person has not learned anything. Pick up your clothes and hang them up. It's simple. Why should someone else do that for you? I'm sorry, you guys. It's just I'm getting a little... All right. It should also be noted that though I started my YouTube channel for my MySpace admirers to admire me more, it turned into a shrine and a tribute to Quentin Tarantino at the time. Quentin's movies were my inspiration for wanting to act and move to LA. For my 17th birthday, my mom had taken my sister and me to see Kill Bill Volume 2. And I remember looking at Uma Thurman and just being in awe of her talent, beauty, and overall ability to kick ass. Not only did I love the settings of films like Pulp Fiction and Jackie Brown, but I also envisioned moving to LA, meeting Quentin Tarantino, and him asking me to marry him on the spot. We'd live happily ever after in his mansion, and I would star in all of his films. Whew. Well, not to my surprise, I actually did get to meet Quentin right around this time. Remember earlier when I mentioned that if I want to meet someone, I will find a way? I owe this one to director Eli Roth. I mention their names because they were the only positive people I encountered in the Hollywood world for the most part. They weren't sleazebags, at least not in my experience. I, along with 100 other people, was friends with Eli on MySpace. What was cool about his page, as opposed to other celebrity pages, was that he actually blogged and responded to fans. I know I emailed him a couple of times via MySpace, and for the first time, he left a comment on a photo of mine. I remember I panicked. I was getting attention from someone of importance, and it wasn't because I was having sex with him. I had never even met him. I guess he took a notice of my admiration for Quentin Tarantino. My name was Grindhouse Barbie on MySpace, and my entire background was QT's face, and every video on my page was me acting out scenes from Quentin's movies or reciting monologues performed by Quentin himself. One day, I actually got a private message back from Eli telling me about a special screening of some movie at the New Beverly Cinema down the street from me, and he hinted that Quentin was going to be there. I immediately jumped on that and was the first in line for that screening. I went by myself, as I did most places when I was living in Hollywood, but I distinctly remember Eli and his brother coming up to me. They recognized me from MySpace. Eli asked if I had met Quentin yet. I said no, and he took my hand and led me to Quentin. Did I mention the reoccurring theme of me blacking out on his book yet? Maybe 1 or 2 times? Well, these blackouts happen a lot to me. It's like I go out of my body and can't remember events taking place. After being introduced to Quentin, I remember him asking me if I was the girl who stood on Hollywood Boulevard as Wonder Woman, Supergirl, but close enough. Then he said something about me doing YouTube videos, and that's all I remember. I do remember a guy came and took a photo of the 3 of us, which I thought was cool because I didn't ask for one, but I don't remember anyone did because it's not cool to ask for photos with celebrities. Some photographer took the photo, gave me his card, and said he'd send it to me. He never did, but that was okay. I met Quentin a few more times at book signings and stuff, and he always remembered me. And of course, it was more than appropriate to get photos at those types of events. If you're still on my YouTube page, look up Hi to Quentin Tarantino. It's me on The Price is Right spinning the big wheel. Drew Carey asked me who I wanted to say hi to as it was spinning, and I said hi to Quentin Tarantino, hoping he'd remember how beautiful I was, and that he'd call me up and ask me to marry him. Never happened. See, this is the reason, you guys, if you've seen the past videos of me talking about TRISHA Paytas, this is the reason why I say she needed to go to college. If anyone needed to go to university and change their mindset, it's TRISHA Paytas. Because here she is hoping that Quentin Tarantino would remember how beautiful she was. He'd call her up and ask her to marry him. She is, I mean, most of her life, it seems like she's been living in a complete ulterior reality. Never happened. Of course it never happened, Trisha. To this day, Quentin is my only idol that I've met who didn't disappoint me. Well, you know why? Because you didn't have sex with him. That's why. It was always gracious of me. He was always gracious to me and gave me hugs. And it just felt nice to be treated well by any guy, much less be a guy that I looked up to. I'm still a huge fan of him to this day. I think meeting Quentin was the first time I got a sense of the power of YouTube. If I had never made those videos about Quentin, Eli would have never seen them, and I wouldn't have had the opportunity to meet my biggest hero. It was kind of surreal, but exciting. Who else could be watching my videos? What else could become of them? I have to say one more side note on Eli Roth and the MySpace days. I also owe Eli the biggest thank you for my best friend in the whole world, Jeff. Jeff had co-written the faux trailer, Thanksgiving, with Eli, and it featured in Quentin Tarantino and Robert Rodriguez's Grindhouse. So obviously I friended Jeff via MySpace after seeing him on Eli's Top Friends. Jeff is the one and only constant friend I've had in my life. He knew what a crazy stalker fan I was of the trailer, the movie, and of QT, but he embraced my crazy from early on. We talked for years online and then on the phone before we actually met in person, but even now, we talk almost every day. He's my best friend and my biggest supporter, and he's been with me through pretty much the rest of this book. He knows all my secrets, and he's never judged. Jeff, I love you so much. I'm so happy my crazy ass stalked you and your friends on MySpace because we are truly two peas in a very messed up pod. Thank you for loving me unconditionally through these past 6 years. For the record, Jeff and I are really just friends. We never had sex and we haven't even kissed, but he has agreed to impregnate me if I am not knocked up by the time I'm 30. It's a joke, but one never knows. I know she is still friends with Jeff. Obviously not this house, but he actually flew down to help her move. I think, was it, if you guys know, let me know down below. Wasn't it the time that she moved before Sean helped her to move into that house? No, wait a minute. Yeah, I think so, huh? I don't know. He helped Trisha move. Let me know if you remember which time was that when she called him and he helped her move. Where was I? Oh, yes. Superhero aired that summer of 2007. I didn't get my big break, but my cosmic book posters of Mrs. Limelight, the character name had to be changed from Epic due to copyright issues, were all over LA. It was pretty exciting to be on a television show that had posters hanging on walls in Silver Lake and aired commercials during prime time. Superhero also brought me a new adventure, which I would be in for the next 3 years, working the comic book convention circuits all across America. Most of you have probably heard of the San Diego Comic-Con and think it's a bunch of nerds dressed in costumes once a year. And that's pretty much all there is to it. I know I thought that before I went on a series of Comic-Con tours. In fall of 2007, I spent my weekdays at the strip club and weekends flying across the country to attend comic book conventions with my fellow superheroes. It was pretty exciting to both be flown in and stay at a paid hotel and get to meet stars of the past. For those of you who have never been to a Comic-Con or any Comic-Con outside of the San Diego one, let me just give you a brief overview what takes place at this kind of event in Nowhere Heresville, Midwest, USA. Oh boy. Comic book conventions take place at a convention center or hotel ballroom, and celebrities, people who might have been on TV back in the 70s, sell their photos and their souls for $20. Okay, Trisha is correct when she says she has celebrities in quotes. And she says people who might have been on TV back in the 70s sell their photos and souls for $20. It's true. All of the people in the 70s go to the Hollywood show if you want to meet them. And you pay like $20, $25 to get in. And then you have to stand in long lines and pay $20 or $25 to have a picture, an 8x10 picture of them signed. Or you pay extra just for their photograph. Or you can buy a photo for like $10 or $15 or $20, but if you want them to sign it, then they add another $25. It's very expensive to go to, and it's pretty sad because they are bitter. They're all bitter, okay? I have many stories of that. There are also vendors who sell merch, comic book artists who sell their literature, food, costume contests, and a whole lot of locals who put on their best Halloween costumes and parade around in a room full of people just like them. I would say it's a place for nerds to go and not to be judged, but after years and years and years and years of working these shows, I know firsthand nerds are the most judgmental. If the metal isn't perfect on your slave Leah costume, or you don't know what a stormtrooper is, as was the case with me, FYI, there are the ones in Star Wars who look like white robots. They laugh at you, literally, they laugh at you crazy, right? I was getting booked through this guy who had approached all of us in the superhero cast after the show had aired. He had a bunch of D-list actors, and I thought, well, why not? What do I have to lose? These conventions were solely about money for me at the time. That's a lie. No, they weren't. They were about you meeting celebrities. It still is the same thing. So how would it be about money at the time? Okay, you don't do anything just for money. Maybe the sex, but I sold my Limelight headshots for about $10 and maybe made an extra $100 a weekend. My booking agent took 10%. So it was a little less than that. Plus, I had to pay for food and my costume to get cleaned. Around this time, I started bleaching my hair bright blonde. So that was always an added expense when I went out of town. Okay, so I guess her mom's not doing it anymore. Remember, her mom was doing it? Over the years, the Comic Cons really became more about the experience of meeting people who knew who I was and who wanted to meet me. However, mixed with my following were people who wanted something from me. This was the beginning stage of my paranoia. I think once I felt the pressure of being in the public eye, even in a very minor way, it messed with my psyche, my sanity, if you will. Of course, sleeping with any guy who looked at me and lived in anything but an apartment really didn't help my mental state either, but I didn't understand that until many years later after many therapy sessions. I'm jumping ahead of myself. We'll get there. You will, right? You're going to keep reading, won't you? I noticed my fans were mostly middle-aged men, which kind of surprised me. I thought I came across as very wholesome at the time. We taped the show, and even at these conventions, my Limelight costume was tame in comparison to all the girls rocking around with pasties and no pants. However, it was cool to have any fans at all. Even to this day, I don't really consider myself as someone who has fans. I like to refer to people who follow my life and career, whether it's on television or the internet, as supporters. Because really, up to the point of me writing this book, what have I really done to earn fans except just live my life? Either way, I am grateful to you. Yes, you, because you are reading my life story, which says you care about my life, hopefully in a positive way. But either way, you care about what I do, and that's all I ever really wanted in life. For someone, somewhere, to care about me. Well, Trisha, wait, I have some things to say. What about you caring about your fans? I mean, you should care about your fans. You should care about different communities. I know that now she's doing this, cosmic secret manifestation, which actually I'm going to make a video on, and it's actually positive. It's not so negative, you guys. But let's go on. After a full 8 hours of signing, we'd go back to our hotels. I was only 19, so I wasn't old enough to go to the bars, but I always follow up with the stars who gave me their numbers. That's another thing you should know about these more random Comic Cons. They are big orgies. Yes, this is true. I was invited to some fan orgies where people who bought tickets to the con would gather together in a room for sex. But I've always been a one-on-one sex kind of girl, so I never partook. Well, that changed, right? One-on-one, not so much with OnlyFans. You've with people who have been with all kinds of people. Her dancer, in her jacuzzi, she's been, If you're a pretty girl, or in some cases just a girl with a vagina, a lot of times these D-list stars would invite me to their hotel room for a bit of an ego boost. Let's face it, if you're a celebrity with actual acting credits under your belt, it must be a bruise to your ego to have to go around and sell your autographs. Do you think Johnny Depp ask for a $20 bill when they see him on the streets? No. So my theory with D-list stars, and I use this term lovingly as I've dated too many to name, is that they want to relive a little bit of their heyday by scoring all the Comic-Con chicks. I didn't say this in judgment. I say this in observation. I think that's true. I do think that's true. Because I know that they're bitter. My brother can help me do a video on this Hollywood show. The Hollywood show is where these 70s D-list celebrities go. I started being one actor's constant at each convention we'd go to. He was an actor on a big show in the early 80s, and he showed up to these conventions with a motorcycle from the series and took pictures with all the ladies sitting on it. I don't know who that is. He was suave and charming. I met him at 19 and began a sexual relationship with him at the second convention I attended. To this day, I still get invited to conventions, and I always look to see if his name is on the list. I'm pretty sure he has since retired from the circuit as well, but he still gives me butterflies. He was buff, and he was a star to me. I bought all the DVDs from his show-off Amazon, and I'd watch them on my downtime. Every convention we worked together, I grew more and more attached to him and more attracted to him. I researched him as well as his shows, and I did find out he was married with children, yet I continued to sleep with him. Oh boy, that's TRISHA Paytas. I'm not really sure why. Yes, you are. Yes, you are. Well, you are now. I'm not really sure why, but I do feel that between this and being an escort to married men, it has brought on a lot of bad relationships, karma for me. It's perhaps the only thing I've regretted in my life. It broke my heart knowing that these guys were such scumbags. But the fact that I was a part of their scumbag schemes did not make me feel good. The fact is that it was never about needing sex. It was about someone wanting me, choosing me, and loving me. I thought I was so special to have been chosen by a guy when there were hundreds of other girls he could be spending his time with. And who was to say that he wasn't? I don't justify sleeping with him unprotected, but if a guy told me he didn't want to use a condom after I asked, I just said okay. It's such a dumb thing to do. So I take back what I said earlier. I regret two things in my life: sleeping with married men and sex without a condom. Both end in heartache and sickness. I actually was only on the Comic-Con circuits for a few months before I started wearing down. I was traveling every weekend, stripping every weekday, and having sex through all of it, multiple times a day with multiple partners. I wasn't paying my bills because I didn't want to spend my hard-earned money on that. 19-year-old Trish thought she didn't have to pay bills. I blew through all my earned money, not on rent, but on clothes, shoes, makeup, and purses. I hardly ate. Sometimes when I look back at the YouTube videos I was putting out at this time, I read the comments and people were saying, wow, Trish was so skinny. What happened? I bettered myself since then, but what's happened? Eventually I got to the point of just not eating because I didn't want to spend money on food. I only ate when I had a date with someone. Do you guys believe that? I mean, do you actually believe that there was a time when TRISHA Paytas wasn't eating? I do not believe that. I'm going to tell you why. Because ever since TRISHA was a tiny little girl, She was eating McDonald's and fast food 3 times a day. You know how addicting that food is. They put stuff in that food in the lab to make you addicted. Okay, so now all of a sudden, she's not choosing to eat when she was 19. Come on, you guys. Really? I don't think so. Here we go. I also had cut off ties with pretty much all of my family. I held resentment towards my brother and father for not helping me or supporting me in my move to Hollywood the previous year. And my mom had remarried yet again, this time to stepdad number 3. And my sister was busy with her own school life. I had no support system, mostly because I was too proud to reach out. Then in December of that year, I had to quit dancing because I had no energy to stand. I couldn't even get up to go to the bathroom. I literally would pee on my futon. That night when I couldn't even get up on my own was the night I picked up my phone, called my dad, and asked him to rush me to the hospital. And that, my darlings, was chapter 7. Wow. Okay. Thank you for watching. Leave your comments down below. See you in chapter 8. Bye.